Have you ever had a moment where you reacted in a way that completely surprised you? Maybe you snapped at someone you love over something small, or you felt a sudden pang of jealousy that left you wondering, where did that come from? I'll never forget a time when I got frustrated with a close friend who was sharing their excitement about a new job. They were practically glowing, but instead of celebrating with them, I felt this strange resentment bubbling up inside me. Later, I sat down and thought, that's not who I want to be. Where did that feeling come from? That, my friends, was my shadow making itself known. Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, introduced the concept of the shadow, the hidden part of your psyche that holds all the emotions, desires, and fears you push away because they feel uncomfortable, shameful, or just don't fit the image you want to project. But here's the thing, your shadow isn't something to fear. It's not your enemy. In fact, it might just be the key to unlocking a more authentic, confident, and whole version of yourself. As Jung once said, the shadow is the doorway to your true self. Ignoring it keeps you stuck, but facing it, that's where real transformation begins. In this video, we're going to explore what the shadow is, how it shows up in your everyday life, and most importantly, how you can start working with it to live more fully as yourself. You'll walk away with practical tools to identify your shadow, embrace it, and use it to grow in ways you never thought possible. So let's start with a question. What's hiding in your shadow? What part of you have you been avoiding? Stick with me, and let's find out together. What is the shadow? Carl Jung's insight. Let's dive into what Carl Jung meant by the shadow. Picture your mind like an iceberg. The part above the water is what you show the world, your kindness, your ambition, your sense of humor. That's your persona, the mask you wear to navigate life and fit in with others. But beneath the surface, deep in your unconscious, lies the shadow. It's everything you've tucked away because it doesn't align with the image you want to present. Maybe it's anger you were taught was wrong, insecurities you're too embarrassed to admit, or even dreams you're too scared to chase. Jung believed the shadow isn't just a collection of negative traits. It's also the home of your untapped potential, your creativity, your passion, or your strength that you've suppressed because it feels too risky to let out. He said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. What does that mean? If you ignore your shadow, it doesn't just sit there quietly. It influences your reactions, your relationships, and the choices you make without you even realizing it. The shadow forms over time, starting in childhood. Think back to when you were a kid. Maybe you were told to be nice when you felt angry, so you learned to hide your anger. Or perhaps you were praised for being the responsible one, so you buried your rebellious or creative side. Over the years, these suppressed parts pile up, creating a shadow that shapes how you see yourself and the world around you. But here's the good news. You don't have to stay in the dark. By understanding your shadow, you can take back control and start living more authentically. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your truest, most whole self. It starts with shining a light on what's hidden. So, how do you know when your shadow is at work? Let's look at some real-life examples to make this crystal clear. How the shadow shows up in your life. Your shadow isn't some abstract idea locked away in a psychology textbook. It's alive and active, showing up in your daily life in ways you might not even notice. It's in those moments when you feel out of control, when your emotions catch you off guard, or when you act in ways that don't feel like you. Let's break down a few ways your shadow might be playing a role in your life right now. First, let's talk about jealousy. Have you ever felt a sting of envy when someone else got the promotion you wanted, or when you saw a friend living their dream life on social media? That jealousy isn't just about wanting what they have. It's often your shadow pointing to a deeper desire you've ignored. For example, I once felt envious of a colleague who seemed to have everything together. Great job, confident vibe, always in the spotlight. But when I dug deeper, I realized my shadow was highlighting my own unacknowledged ambition. I wanted to shine too, but I was too afraid to admit it. Another way the shadow shows up is through defensiveness. Imagine someone gives you feedback at work or in a relationship, and instead of listening, you snap back or shut down completely. That's your shadow protecting a hidden insecurity. Maybe you're afraid of being seen as not good enough, so you push that fear away instead of facing it. I've been there. Once a mentor pointed out a mistake I made, and I got so defensive I barely heard their advice. Later, I realized my shadow was guarding a fear of failure I hadn't acknowledged. Then there's self-sabotage, one of the shadow's sneakiest tricks. Ever procrastinated on a project you really cared about? Or maybe you avoided a big opportunity because you told yourself, "I'm not ready." That's your shadow keeping you safe from the risk of failure or rejection. I remember putting off a creative project for months, a blog I wanted to start, because I was terrified it wouldn't be perfect. My shadow was whispering, "What if you fail? What if people judge you?" Your shadow can also show up in your relationships. Have you ever noticed you keep attracting the same kind of partner, someone who triggers the same old patterns? That's not just bad luck. Jung believed the shadow draws us to people and situations that force us to confront what we've hidden. For instance, if you suppress your need for independence, you might find yourself in relationships where you feel smothered because your shadow is pushing you to face that need. I had a friend who kept dating controlling partners. When she explored her shadow, she realized she was suppressing her own strength, and her relationships were mirroring that inner conflict. Your shadow might also appear in those quiet moments when you feel disconnected from yourself. Maybe you're going through the motions, work, home, repeat, but deep down, you feel like something's missing. That's your shadow nudging you saying, "There's more to you than this." It's the part of you that's longing to be seen, whether it's your creativity, your courage, or even your vulnerability. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt something you didn't want to admit? Maybe it was anger at someone you love, shame about a mistake, or a secret desire you've never shared with anyone. Those moments are your shadow waving at you, asking for your attention. The good news is you don't have to be controlled by it. You can learn to work with your shadow, and that's what we're going to explore next. 3 steps to face and integrate your shadow. So, how do you face something as deep and complex as your shadow? This isn't about fighting it or trying to get rid of it. That's impossible because your shadow is part of you. Instead, it's about making peace with it, understanding it, and integrating it so it becomes a source of strength rather than a source of struggle. Here are 3 practical steps you can start today to begin this transformative journey. Step 1. Notice your triggers. The first step is all about awareness. Your shadow reveals itself in those moments when you feel a strong emotional reaction: anger, jealousy, fear, sadness, or even guilt. These are like signposts pointing to what's hiding in your unconscious. For example, if you feel irritated when someone brags about their success, that irritation is a clue. Instead of pushing it away, get curious. Ask yourself, why does this bother me? What part of me feels threatened or left out? One of the best ways to do this is to keep a journal. The next time you feel triggered, write down what happened, how you felt, and what thoughts came up. Be brutally honest. No one's going to read this but you. I started doing this a few years ago, and it was like shining a flashlight into the corners of my mind. I realized my frustration with certain people wasn't about them. It was about my own unacknowledged desires, like wanting to be seen or valued. Let's make this concrete. Say you're at a family gathering, and your cousin starts talking about their amazing new house. You feel a twinge of resentment. Instead of brushing it off, take a moment later to write down what you felt and why. Maybe you'll realize it's not about their house. It's about your own fear of not measuring up. That's your shadow speaking, and noticing it is the first step to understanding it. Step 2, accept, don't judge. Once you've identified a piece of your shadow, the next step is to accept it without judgment. This is where most people get stuck, because it's hard to look at parts of yourself you've labeled as bad or wrong. Maybe you feel ashamed of your jealousy, or you think your anger makes you a bad person. But Jung believed that the shadow isn't your enemy. It's a part of you that's longing to be seen and understood. Instead of beating yourself up for feeling a certain way, try saying to yourself, "It's okay that I feel this. It's human. I'm allowed to feel this." This simple act of acceptance can be incredibly freeing. For example, I used to feel guilty about my competitive side. I thought it made me selfish or petty. But when I started accepting it as part of who I am, I realized it was also the source of my drive to grow and improve. That competitiveness wasn't bad. It was a spark I could channel into positive action. You can practice this through meditation too. Find a quiet moment, sit comfortably, and focus on that emotion for 5 minutes. Let it be there without trying to change it or judge it. Just breathe and say, "I see you." Over time, this builds a sense of compassion for yourself, which is the foundation of shadow work. Let's say you're angry at a friend who let you down. Instead of telling yourself, "I shouldn't feel this way," try writing in your journal, "I'm angry, and that's okay. What's this anger trying to tell me?" Maybe it's showing you a boundary you need to set or a need you've ignored. Acceptance doesn't mean acting on every emotion. It means listening to what your shadow is trying to teach you. Step 3. Integrate through action. The final step is to bring your shadow into the light through action. This doesn't mean acting out your negative emotions, like yelling at someone because you're angry. Instead, it's about finding healthy, constructive ways to express and honor those hidden parts of yourself. If your shadow is hiding your creativity because you're afraid of judgment, start a small creative project, like writing a short story, painting, or even posting a thoughtful idea online. If you've been suppressing anger, try writing a letter to yourself about what's making you mad. Don't send it, just let it out. Or if your shadow is holding on to a fear of failure, take one small step toward a goal you've been avoiding. For me, integrating my shadow meant signing up for a public speaking class, even though I was terrified of being judged. I'd always avoided speaking up in groups because my shadow was afraid of looking foolish. But taking that small step helped me reclaim a part of myself I'd been hiding. It wasn't easy, but it was liberating. The key is to start small. Small actions lead to big changes over time. Here's another example. Let's say you realize your shadow is hiding a desire to be more assertive. Maybe you've always been the nice person who avoids conflict. A small action could be practicing saying no to something small, like declining an invitation you don't want to accept. Or if your shadow is holding on to shame about a past mistake, try writing a letter of forgiveness to yourself. These actions don't just help you process your shadow, they help you grow into a more confident, authentic version of yourself. These 3 steps, noticing your triggers, accepting without judgment, and integrating through action, are the heart of shadow work. They're not always easy, but they're incredibly powerful. Jung believed that by doing this work, you move closer to individuation, the process of becoming your truest, most whole self. So, what would it look like for you to start this journey? What's one trigger you could explore today? What's one small action you could take to honor your shadow? Why embracing your shadow matters. You might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of work. Why should I bother facing my shadow? The answer lies in what happens when you don't face it. When you ignore your shadow, it doesn't stay silent. It shows up in ways that can hold you back. Strained relationships, missed opportunities, or that constant feeling that you're not living the life you're meant to live. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In other words, true growth comes from facing the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. Let's look at what happens when you ignore your shadow. Maybe you keep repeating the same patterns in relationships, picking partners who don't value you because your shadow is hiding your own sense of worth. I had a friend who kept dating people who dismissed her dreams. When she explored her shadow, she realized she was suppressing her own confidence and ambition, and her relationships were mirroring that inner struggle. Or maybe you stay stuck in a job you hate because your shadow is afraid of the uncertainty that comes with change. I've been there too. For years, I avoided taking risks in my career because my shadow kept whispering, "You're not good enough." Now, imagine what happens when you do embrace your shadow. You start to understand why you react the way you do, which gives you more control over your emotions. You build stronger, more honest relationships because you're not projecting your hidden fears onto others. You tap into your hidden potential, maybe that creativity, courage, or vulnerability you've been suppressing. Most importantly, you start to feel more at peace with yourself. You stop fighting who you are and start embracing it. Here's a real-world example. A colleague of mine struggled with anger for years. She'd bottle it up, then explode over small things, which hurt her relationships. When she started exploring her shadow, she realized her anger came from feeling powerless in her childhood. By accepting that anger and finding healthy ways to express it, like through exercise, journaling, and honest conversations, she transformed her relationships and her sense of self. She didn't just fix her anger, she discovered a strength she didn't know she had. That's the power of shadow work. It's not about becoming perfect, it's about becoming whole. Embracing your shadow also helps you connect with others on a deeper level. When you're honest about your own struggles, you become more compassionate toward others. You start to see that everyone has a shadow, and those flaws you notice in others are often reflections of your own hidden parts. This can lead to more empathy, better communication, and stronger bonds. For example, I used to judge people who seemed overly confident, thinking they were arrogant. But when I faced my shadow, I realized I was judging my own desire to be seen and valued. That realization made me more understanding and less critical of others. Let me ask you this. What would your life look like if you stopped running from your shadow? What relationships could you heal? What dreams could you chase? What would it feel like to live without that inner conflict, to feel at home in your own skin? Shadow work isn't just about facing the dark, it's about finding the light within it. It's about discovering the parts of you that are waiting to shine. We've explored a lot today, from understanding what the shadow is to learning practical steps to work with it. The truth is, we all have a shadow. It's what makes us human. It's the part of you that feels angry, scared, or unworthy, but it's also the part that holds your deepest potential. Your creativity, your courage, your unique spark. As Carl Jung said, the shadow is the doorway to your true self. Facing it isn't about erasing your flaws. It's about embracing your whole self and stepping into a life that's truly yours. So, here's my challenge to you. Take one small step today to meet your shadow. Grab a journal and write down one emotion or fear you've been avoiding. Maybe it's anger at someone who hurt you, shame about a mistake you made, or a dream you've been too scared to admit. Ask yourself, where does this come from? What's it trying to tell me? You don't have to figure it all out right now. Just start. That one small act of courage can set you on a path to deeper self-awareness, stronger relationships, and a life that feels more authentic. If this video spoke to you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share what part of your shadow you're ready to face. Maybe it's a specific fear, an emotion, or a moment that triggered you. Your story might inspire someone else to start their own journey, and that's how we grow together. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button. It helps us reach more people who need this message. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can join us for more deep dives into Carl Jung's wisdom. Let's keep this conversation going. What's one step you're going to take today to embrace your shadow? I believe in you, and I'm excited to see where this journey takes you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.